Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's a kind of one of those gloomy, cloudy, slightly drizzly, cool, cold, damp fall days. I mean, I remember I've been telling you, some of you gotten annoyed at it, but I've been telling you for weeks of how amazing and bright, sunny, shiny, clear days we've been having. Well, today's different. And it'll be that way tomorrow. Yesterday was the same way. It's just the change in the season, but it's bringing cool, cold weather in because it's been so warm, and it's kind of nice to finally see a change in the season. So I talked quite a bit this morning about not just the economy, but just the state of everything when you add it all together. And it's, you've got economic problems, war problems, civil disruption problems, illegals, and political and religious and everything else. And it's like it's this buildup to get us to this point that there's just a purposeful breakdown in society. And I think I think it's being orchestrated. I think they want that. You could say, well, it's because Trump wants to stay in office another term, or it could be much bigger and much more, nefarious of, creating an avenue where they can much easier roll out AI, this massive surveillance infrastructure, digital currencies, all this kind of stuff. Because if you have a breakdown in society, if people that are starving, if, people that they can't afford things, there's no jobs, there's civil disruptions and nearly anarchy, martial law, insurrection, all this kind of stuff. It definitely can make a case for, hey, we've got this fix. Everyone's going to be taken care of. There's no need to be fighting and protesting anymore. Your lives are going to be so much easier. You don't have to worry about those food stamps. You don't have to worry about the working and everything. We got it all taken care of. That's kind of what it looks like may be happening. Since the start of this year, among all the other things where, it was announced just the other day that the national debt went up $1 trillion in just over 2 months. $1 trillion in debt in 2 months. And they're bragging about how much we're bringing in revenue on tariffs, which is taxing you. It's money coming out of your pocket. But yet we went up $1 trillion in a little over 2 months in debt. All this other, commercial debt, consumer debt, everything else. It's just, the dollar losing value. Well, anyways, since the first of this year, there have been a little over 1 million layoffs in the public sector. 1 million layoffs. So the last time we had anywhere near that much was, of course, during the start of COVID. And we're seeing businesses left and right, close doors, shut down branches and, offices and stuff, and just cutting back on their labor force. Amazon last week announced that they were going to be, over time, over the next few years maybe, cutting back, laying off around 600,000 of their employees and replacing them with AI and robots and stuff like that. Well, today they've announced that starting tomorrow, short notice here, folks, starting tomorrow, 30,000 Amazon employees will be laid off. It's moving fast in this way. There's, people are not going to have food stamps. People aren't going to get, subsidies and help and stuff. Maybe I know there's a lot of them that don't need it. They shouldn't need it. But that's not the point. The point is that they're used to it, and it's being ripped out from underneath them. And, the question is, what will they do with themselves? Will they turn against other people? Will they, there's already such massive tensions right now in the country, and a massive divide. That, people that don't have a job, they can't buy groceries, they're desperate, they might just turn to do anything. And then, of course, you've got all the government layoffs, furloughs, whatever you want to call them. And it's interesting because the president, the Trump administration, don't really seem too interested. They don't really care too much about getting the government back up and going. And I've always said, shut it down and never start it back up again. But this is different. And I don't think it's for the same reasons that maybe you and I would be hopeful for, is shut it down and don't start it back up. I think it's shut it down, get rid of all the people employees, and replace them with AI, which is exactly what I had been telling you for months in the very beginning of all this, that's what Elon Musk and the Doge, whatever Department of Government Efficiency, that's what they were trying to do. They weren't really saving and downsizing government. They were just figuring out what employees could be let go and replaced with AI. You know, kind of like the Department of Education. They weren't really going to and trying to do away with the Department of Education. They were trying to do away with the employees of the Department of Education and replace them with AI. Well, anyways, Palantir and an Oracle run by Larry Ellison, they have become a very big and powerful and well-known entities within this government. And I mean, Larry Ellison, he's clearly on record of being in favor of mRNA, you know, genetic gene modifying to cure cancer. And he's been big in favor of mass surveillance and Chinese-style social credit scores. Palantir has made billions on mass surveillance and facial recognition and being basically like a thought police, this pre-crime kind of stuff. So to speak, where they, you know, look at your purchasing habits and where you're traveling and what you're doing in your social media, and they're able to send an alert to law enforcement and say, hey, this guy has a such and such percentage chance of committing this crime. These are the people that are really kind of running the show. And I often wonder, as much as we want to be thinking about, you know, well, when are we finally going to invade Venezuela? Today, on that note, Russia and Venezuela signed a security pact. And we've been flying B-1 bombers just off the coast of Venezuela today. So more saber rattling and threats. But things like that, things like the Middle East with Gaza and Israel and Iran and then Russia and Ukraine and all these, how much of it really is just a distraction? I'm not saying it's not happening, but how much of it is purposely being done to just keep the masses busy, you know, the bread and circuses. Because they clearly have a plan. They clearly have a plan to massively replace and change everything. I've been seeing comments online, and I'll admit, most of these comments I think are just based in speculation. I don't really see a lot of hard facts to back this up, but I don't think they're probably too wrong. And basically the comments are something to the effect of 2025 will be the last normal, so to speak, year. That the new world order, the new whatever it is, the new agenda, whatever, it's going to start next year, and it'll start becoming very, very noticeable. And I think that in itself is going to be true. Larry Fink, he's the head of BlackRock, $13-15 trillion in assets. He's also now the president of the World Economic Forum. It's not Klaus Schwab anymore. He retired. So this is a very powerful man. And he said that in the near future, everything will be tokenized. And what that means is that every asset will be digitized. So everything will be digital, is what he's saying. So even if you have, you own ownership into something, you won't really own ownership into something. You'll just own it in a digital form. There's a lot of this happening. Like, it's daily if you dig into it. But you have to take notice. You have to know where to look, because they're not typically sharing this out in the public. But just about daily, there's something in the news about, digitization of something, or AI, how it's growing, or some new breakthrough, some new law, some new policy. There's a lot happening, folks. A lot. And now we're watching potentially millions. I mean, over a million already, 30,000 starting tomorrow, 600,000. That's just Amazon. How many other companies are doing that? And that's just Amazon. We're talking millions of jobs lost. And this should not come as a shock because Klaus Schwab several years ago talked about this. Talked about how there'd be a lot less jobs and people were going to be upset, but, that the government was going to have to figure that out because, give them something to do. That Yuval Noah Harari, or whatever the guy's name is. You know who he is, and if you don't, you need to go figure out who I'm talking about. He's talked about that there would be just useless humans, that they might keep them, hopped up on drugs and plugged into video games or something, because at some point there's just not going to need to be very many of them, because, well, computers and AI and robots and everything's going to do everything. I know this sounds like crazy sci-fi stuff, but it is actually happening. This isn't even just something we're talking about. It's actually happening. These data centers, AI data centers, just developing in insane ways. I saw a number the other day that the entire growth in the stock market this year, not stock market, economy. The entire growth in the economy this year, if you removed artificial intelligence and these data centers, companies that are AI tech companies and data centers. So if you removed those from economic growth, our economy would have only grown 0.01%. 0.01% is all our economy would have grown this year if you removed the AI tech companies and the data centers, because they're growing at insane, massive rates. There's literally hundreds of billions of dollars a year, very likely into the trillions of dollars a year, being dumped into these AI data centers and the development of AI. And I know people are like, oh, it's a bubble, it's going to pop, it'll pass. Yeah, well, I heard people 20 years ago saying the same thing, 30 years ago or whatever, saying the same thing about, the internet. And it popped, but it certainly didn't shrink down and go away. This stuff's not coming, folks. It's here. They've just been able up to now to kind of hide it and shield it from your eyes. It's not quite as obvious, but it's becoming very obvious. Okay? It's becoming quite noticeable. And we're talking about millions of jobs lost, people out of work, people not getting their food stamps, people not getting rent paid, and all these other bills because of other things cut back and shut down. Figure it out for yourself. How do you think people are going to react? What do you think the general reaction is going to be? You probably should be getting ready for this. I know I paint a bleak picture, and it sounds awful and horrible, and in a lot of ways, yeah, it is. But it doesn't mean that you can't be prepared for this and make it through it. That is something we can do. We need to be getting ourselves really ready for this one, because it's happening as we speak. It's not going to happen. It's not maybe happening. It is happening, and has already happened a lot. And we need to get ready for it. All right, folks, you need to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.